Hi, Danna.
Hi.
I just wanted to welcome you on the podcast today. I'm really excited about just chatting with you and getting a chance to hear from you. I've been, yeah, human design and trauma and all of these things that we've connected on. I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective and how you landed in this place of doing, human design shadow reports and what you're feeling passionate about right now in life. So thank you again for just making the time to be here with me today.
Of course, it's an honor. Do you want me to just start?
Oh yeah.
Talk.
I mean,
Okay.
absolutely. I
Very
know that
cool.
you have your own podcast too, so you're really comfortable with
Yep.
just kind of like getting at it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to just start because once I start, I just go. But
And that's
thank you for
that's
having me here.
perfect. You're
Great.
welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So what I do is human design shadow work, and I started this because I needed a way to locate and understand my own trauma and my own conditioning. So I had years and years of therapy, all kinds of new age shit. Am I allowed to curse on here?
Yeah, I curse
Okay,
all the time. Cursing
great.
welcome.
Great. I had tried everything and I still felt like I was missing something. Like I couldn't get to the root. Also, I have no memory of my childhood. So that was an issue. Every piece of shadow work you do is like, well, when's the first time that you remember this happening? And that's one of the number one questions I ask my clients too, because it's really important. But for some of us
Mhm.
that don't remember, we don't know.
Yeah.
So what I did to kind of figure that out with my logical format energy is work backwards using the body graph. So I started to use the body graph to understand where I was sabotaging myself, where my conditioning was, where the not self energy was. And I realized that there was a lot of noise about human design, and
Mm.
none of it was very specific in terms of deconditioning. Like the deconditioning work was follow your strategy and authority and it'll just happen.
No.
No, it doesn't. It
Not for
doesn't. And I
me.
found that right. I found that to be such a cop out. And I couldn't even follow my strategy and authority because I was so disconnected from my body. So I was like, okay, here's the first problem here. We're all dysregulated because we're all traumatized. So,
Mm.
first, let's regulate the nervous system and let's figure out how to do that based on my body graph. Second, let me see what my biggest conditioning factors are. Like, I think I know what my sabotage patterns are, but the thing is that they're so sneaky that we don't even realize it. So when I
Mhm.
started doing the work on it and realizing that it wasn't necessarily all in my open centers because I'm a split definition, it was in my bridges. And I had never considered that. Nobody had ever said that to me. And that just like blew my mind and set me on a whole new trajectory with shadow reports, with helping people understand their own traumas, but also to heal my own. I was like, this makes so much more sense. But
Mm.
then also with the undefined centers, like I recognized that I was living, and this is probably one of my biggest revelations in the beginning, was everything that my undefined centers told me that I was what astrology was telling me that I was. So my undefined solar plexus, not self theme, is being secretive. My Scorpio sun is like, oh, you're naturally secretive. And I was like,
Mm.
wait a minute, this does
Mm.
not track. Right. Like, how does this fit in? Like, I thought I was supposed to be secretive.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like a good trait of a Scorpio. And here I am looking at human design, and human design is like, no, that's your not self, girlfriend. So I really kind of took some time away from astrology, and that's a whole other podcast. But
Mhm.
I started to recognize where these themes that astrology tended to glorify, or pop astrology, we'll call it, were actually not self themes, and places where I was being someone who I am not. So I started to play with that. And then I started to look at the chart in terms of our trauma responses. So fight, flight, freeze. And you and I have done work on it. You've
Yeah.
come into one of my programs and created some amazing things. But I started to recognize where it was showing up in my chart based on my conscious earth gate, my conscious moon gate. So our conscious moon is what drives us. And most of us are being driven by our trauma responses, by our survival mechanisms. So I started looking at the conscious moon. If this was a trauma response, how would it show up? And how does that influence my entire chart and my entire life? And it was just like light bulbs. And then I was like, what else is here?
Yes. What else?
So much. So what we did is we started digging, and by we, I mean me. And and also recognizing that underneath all of this not self are some really magical gifts that we all possess. I call it the shadow genius. And it is this genius that we have repressed and suppressed and created conditioning on top of that we're really trying to get to. So the work that I do is about removing some of that conditioning so we can find the shadow genius and then being able to integrate that back into our life.
Well, I can tell you that the first time I was introduced to your work, right away, I was just like, Scorpio rising. How can we go deeper? And what does all of this mean? And also being a 4/6 projector, an emotional 4/6 projector. I mean, life's been interesting trying to figure that shit out and how it plays into the astrology and all of these other things, making the unconscious conscious, and how, you know, sometimes we give our power away to these systems as well. We're like, okay, like you said with the Scorpio thing, you're like, well, I guess I'm just supposed to be secretive.
Yeah.
So
Right.
like, that's fine. That's how I'm going to be. And then we realize that underneath that, there's all of these layers and all of these other hidden pieces of us that can be revealed through the chart, through the human design chart, and through these shadows that aren't comfortable to look at, but that make sense, you know? And so even just when I was looking at my shadow report that you did up for me, I was just like, bam, 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 having all of these memories, right? And memories aren't a thing for me either, you know, from like 0 to 10. Where did that time go? And that's right. For many people, it's like that. The system was overwhelmed at a young age, and we had to, you know, hide certain things from ourselves until, you know, there's a point in time where we want to remember or need to remember. And sometimes that never comes, and nor is it necessary. But, you know, it can become, you know, this thing where, how can I work on myself if I don't know anything? As you said, how can I go back to my child self, do the inner child work, which was always so annoying for me personally. I'm like, how am I supposed to do this? Like, I don't know. I don't even know what I liked as a child.
Right. Oh my God.
That I have like stories that people have told me. Yeah. But like, I don't have a felt sense of like what I actually enjoyed. So how the fuck am I supposed to work with this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, you know, for people that do remember, I think those prompts are really good. But you know, so many people contact me with similar stories. Like, I don't have a memory of my childhood. I don't know what happened. I don't think I'm traumatized because I had a great childhood. There's a lot of trauma denial happening. And even me, you know, like sometimes I am like, well, was I traumatized? Because I can't remember.
That's
right. But I think the biggest thing has been listening to the body and trusting my body. Well, if my mind just doesn't forget things, right? Like if there's decades that are missing, there's probably a reason for it. And how does the body feel? So that's kind of also what we started doing with the shadow work is instead of taking it all into the mind, how do you feel when this happens? Because your body keeps the score, right? Like your body remembers. So one of my first inclinations of that, and what made me kind of take that somatic route using human design was, I mean, I think anybody that knows my story, I talk about this openly, that I was born in Israel. And one of my first, I guess it's not a memory, I remember smells, right? So one of my first memory of a smell was being in the bomb shelter and wearing a gas mask as a young child. So didn't really think about it. I also never considered that to be traumatizing. I
Right.
really didn't think it was a big deal, especially because my people have been through much worse. I
Right.
left when I was 8, not that big of a deal. So fast forward many years after COVID, and my son had bought a hazmat suit, and he put on the gas mask that was part of the suit, and I had a panic attack
Whoa.
for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, there's something here. Like, I already had some of like the knowledge. I already knew the breath work. I mean, at this point, I've been working on myself for a lot of years, but I was like, there's something else I'm missing here. And I
Yeah.
need to tap into it. And I don't know how, because I don't have the memory. So
That's
again,
right.
that's when I was like, okay, well, let me look at this body graph. And when I say these things based on my bridges, or based on my undefined centers, or based on my other openness, what is being triggered within
Yeah.
me? And in my external world, what is being felt in my body as a trigger that my mind doesn't remember, because my
That's
body
right.
doesn't forget.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you're bringing up this point, because it kind of draws in this somatic work in a big way, and how we don't actually have to have memories to be able to resolve things that are held in our body. Even just seeing something like you did with the mask, and, how we normalize really fucking traumatic things, because either that's like what we're living in, the environment we're living in, or it's normal in our household. If we have parents that are chaotic or yelling all the time, or whatever the case might be, that becomes the state that our system lives in.
Yeah.
And it's only sometimes until after we're out of that state in relative safety that the body's like willing to give up some of these things, and to point clues towards like, oh yeah, you might want to have a look at that. Oh shit,
Yes.
like I don't have memory of this, or maybe I do, but my body is doing something that is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. And I
fascinating.
think it really is interesting. I forgot what I was just going to say. Doesn't
Probably
matter.
something about amazing shadow things and
I
how they're
mean,
always leading us back home somehow,
oh,
some
here's
way.
what I was going to say. Yeah. Like you talked about making the unconscious conscious, and that is
Yeah.
the goal for all of this. But I think it's still so important to create that safety in your body, because your subconscious mind is not going to release what is in
Right.
there. And there's this, I don't know, I see it, there's like this disconnect, right? Like, even when we're doing, most people are familiar with money mindset work,
Yeah.
and you're like, I don't know what this thing is, something is blocking me, I don't know what it is, I've answered all of these 3 million questions from 4,500 money coaches,
Right.
and I still don't know what it is. The subconscious mind is holding on to something, and it doesn't release it because it doesn't feel safe. So
Right.
the way that this shows up for me and for a lot of other people is through distractions, light nervous system response
Yeah.
of, well, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to sit down and journal. I'm too busy to do this. I'm too busy to do that. Or like sitting down to journal, picking up your phone like every 5 seconds,
That's
which
right.
I'm totally guilty of.
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah. Like, I always know there's something there. There's
Yeah.
something there. Different pains in the body, like psychosomatic pains and muscle aches, and even, I mean, I tend to think it's like illnesses as well. It's all emotion based. I think it's all the subconscious trying to either distract us so that we don't die,
Yeah.
because it thinks that has so much power, it could kill us.
Yeah.
Or it's just not safe. It's just not safe. So
Yeah.
just stop. Pay attention
Totally.
to this thing.
Absolutely. And even if we're living in the most uncomfortable way, it's still safer than what's unfamiliar, right?
100%.
What's unknown. And so, I like to think about our addictions are like, and that could include anything that we do to distract ourselves away from a state that's just too much to feel. That could be caffeine, that could be food, that could be drug, like it could literally be anything. Online shopping, picking up your phone 1,000 times when you're trying to complete a task.
Yeah.
It feels uncomfortable. All of these ways that the body is just searching for ways to regulate, and we also do that through, sex, touch, all of these other things. When there is trauma, and even when there isn't trauma, it's like touching the body automatically is like meant to be very regulating, unless of course it's coupled with, abuse or harm that's been done. And then it becomes really confusing within. So I always think that like our animal bodies are just always reaching for these things. And what the mind does, it comes in and like makes us wrong, gives us shame, and all of these things. Cause like, think about, if you come in with a mindset of like, I need to fix you, you're broken. Like, what does your body do? Like right now I can feel that within me. My body's like, oh yeah, I am, or like I can feel more of a constriction, a tightness in my chest and even in my diaphragm and how I'm speaking. But if I come in with like, hey, like, I just want to get to know you. Like, can we be partners in this shit?
Yeah.
Like even now I can feel it. It's like everything is just kind of softening. And that state of softening is like, that's what we're going for. That's where the juice is. That's where we can, dig in maybe a little bit deeper in partnership, with our bodies rather than making them like wrong or whatever it is that we're doing. And that's also what I love about the shadow reports. I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't want to assume this leadership role because of this. That's like, like deep in there. I don't want to talk about this because like I'm an empath or a highly sensitive person. And like that was squashed when I was little, like all these light bulbs, just were going off through the shadow report. So I love that. I like to think of mastery as, when you've embodied a system, and then you kind of can bring in other bodies of work and make the connections, which is what you've so beautifully done. It's a form of mastery.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to bridge that gap. Like, I think for a lot of human design enthusiasts, they look at their chart and they're like, wow, look how amazing I am. Look at my potential. And it's so true. Like, there is so much potential and power to each one of us in our body graph. But when I first looked at mine, it felt very disconnected.
Me too.
I was like, I see this, but I don't know. Like, I hear you and maybe I could see that, but like, I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to begin to get there.
Totally. Yeah.
Strategy and authority? What? No, like, I don't trust my gut.
Yeah.
I've been
wait for the invitation.
Right.
Like, what does that mean?
Right.
All of these things that were so cryptic to me.
So cryptic.
And to my system.
And you know what? I think there was also a lot of gatekeeping. Like back when I learned human design, I think there still is now a lot of gatekeeping, which is why if you go on my Instagram, you will literally find everything I'm looking for. So everything you're looking for, so you can do this work for yourself. You don't even need me to create a report for you.
Yeah, which is lovely.
But there's so much gatekeeping. Like I remember when it used to be impossible to find anything on variables. Like you couldn't even Google them.
No.
And it's like, why? Same thing with like Dream Rave. Like I have a video on YouTube. There's like 2 other videos that I've ever found on Dream Rave. Like, why?
Right. Because I honestly think people are still trying to decode that shit.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Honestly, I like human design. The first time I ever had a reading, and it wasn't even a reading, it was just like, give me your information online and I'll spit out a report, was in 2011.
Okay.
That was a long time ago. And I got the report. And of course, it was like through the words of Ra, like the creator or the channeler of human design. And I was just like, something within me knows that there's more to this.
Right.
And like, I knew probably through one of my gates that like this was going to blow up at some point. Like I knew that the shit was going to go off the hooks. I just didn't know when, and I didn't understand it enough. And so I kind of just like put it off to the side. I was like, I don't know about these words and what this guy is like talking about. And Jesus, I can't even understand half the things he's saying. And then I think it was like 2018 or 2019 that it came back into my life through I think I was going through my emails and like deleting stuff. And I was like, oh, human design report. And then it was more mainstream then. I was like, okay,
Yes.
there's more people that are decoding these words.
Yeah.
It's like the kind of like, I don't want to say the master have spoken, but like Ross said
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
piece, and then everyone's like, okay, well, obviously there's a lot to this. So how can we make more sense of it? And then, Karen Curry Parker came online with like
Yeah.
quantum, and all of these other things, which actually made more sense to my system and my brain. I was like, okay, I can kind of like start to piece together this understanding. And so I'm curious to know, like, when did you first get into human design, and like how, like, what did you think of Ra's teachings, and like how did they
Oh my
feel
God.
within you?
When I first heard Ra, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And how do I put him on like 3 times the speed? Because he would talk so
Oh
slow
my
and like
God.
I
Yeah.
couldn't handle it. I
Yeah.
hated listening to him. He has since grown on me and I like absolutely adore him.
He's like a
Just
cute
like
little
his,
grandpa or something now to me.
yeah, like
Yeah.
like a what is that, grumpy old man?
Grumpy
Like
old man. Yeah.
he's totally a grumpy old man. And like some of the shit he says, I'm just like, oh my God, you can't say that.
Yeah.
But he didn't care, which I
Right.
loved. He did not give a shit.
Yeah.
I heard human design, I want to say 2017, maybe 2018, maybe
Mm,
on a podcast. And I can remember exactly where I was, which says a lot because I never remember anything.
right.
I remember exactly where I was. I was driving and I was like, interesting. And that was the second time that I had heard about it. So the first time, I don't remember when it was. That was the second time. And I was like, okay. Let me see what's here. And I
Mm-hmm.
just explored it. And, I went through all the different routes of like Jenna Zoe and to become magnetic, I think did something.
Yeah. Lacey, it
It
was
was just so
Lacey
many,
Phillips. Yeah. So
Lacey
many others.
Phillips. Yep.
Yep.
It was just so many people. And I was like, I needed to learn it for myself.
Yeah.
Like I needed to read it. I needed to listen to it. I needed to not listen to other people's understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
I did listen to Karen Curry Parker a lot, but I didn't connect with her interpretation.
Yeah.
It was too love and light.
Mm-hmm. It was very love and light.
Yeah. Which is why I love Rob, because he's so
Yeah.
logical, so frank, so like dark.
That's right.
And I appreciate that.
Me too.
And
The polarities. Yeah. It's like how
yeah.
someone can take this and just be really real, which I also appreciate. And then I think for me, it was just like the different wording of things
Yes.
that made the difference. It wasn't necessarily Karen's like love and light piece, because like
Mhm.
like that makes me want to throw up in my mouth too a little bit. Even though it's important. No offense,
Yeah.
Karen. I love your work. I love your work, Karen. But
Same.
yeah, I was just like, it doesn't speak to me in the full truthness of what this is. Yeah.
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 Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate everyone that has kind of created their own interpretation, which is what I've done with the shadow chart.
Totally.
It's just we have to like a lot of people say, source material. And I love source material too. Like I love Ra's material
Too.
that's what I base mine off of
Yeah.
rather than diluting it with somebody else's words in between. But
Totally.
also we have to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do something with this information. Like it can't just stay the way the Ra has taught it. Like
That's
something
right.
has to come out of it, like how Richard Rudd created Gene Keys,
Oh,
right?
Richard.
Similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, Richard.
Oh, Richard.
I could listen to him talk forever.
Yeah. And even him, me too. I'm just like, oh my God, dude, like the things that you have brought to this whole, human design thing is, not all love and light. Like if you listen to some of his stuff explaining the channels and the keys, man, it's harsh. It's like y'all being
Yeah.
stupid, like not in those words, but he's
Right,
like,
right.
y'all being greedy, better like sort that shit out, like the
Right.
shadow aspects and then the greatest potential and like the meeting in the middle. Like that has helped me as well tremendously in understanding myself and the gene keys and human design.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's such an important part that human design doesn't really talk about enough. The frequencies of the gates.
Frequencies.
Yeah, like you can be in the
Yeah.
shadow frequency, but you also always have access to that gift as well.
That's right. Yeah.
The city feels a little disconnected for me, but the gift for sure.
Yeah, the city. I mean, likewise. I think for my son, it's like I'm 26. And so the city is like, oh God. It's like, what is it? Like doing things. Oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue. Doing things that like doing really wonderful things that no one knows about.
Invisibility.
Invisible. Thank you. There's a word for that.
Yeah.
And so part of me actually recognizes that. Like there's, I can remember times when I used to go to the public library and write notes, like notes of like, keep going. I know life is shit right now in my own language, and just place it in books for people to find.
Really?
Yeah. And I love that shit.
So cool.
Like I'm the girl that's going to go and place like a $20 bill in like one of those library things on the side of the street and be like,
yeah,
like really happy about it that no one will ever know. Well, I guess people know now because I'm like speaking to it, but it's not something that I,
where do you live again?
Exactly. Like, you want to get some free cash? Come to Lisa's library. But that stuff, it's not something I really advertise. It's just something I enjoy doing. And so that city spoke to me in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Right. But the shadow side of that is like lack. And how, there's this overarching theme of like, it doesn't matter because everything is just full of lack. And I've also been in those places in my life as well. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think we don't realize that we have access to all of it.
The spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about what we choose to perceive and also how our behavior aligns with it. Like if we're living in our trauma and in the embodiment of our trauma, then we can't even see it. It's not even like in our realm of reality.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are living strictly out of trauma.
100%. Yeah.
And then we have, I think it's like it's a weird thing that happens when you're doing the work on yourself and you're trying to find yourself and you're waking up, whatever you want to call it. I think there's that place in the middle where you just spiritually bypass everything.
Oh, fuck
and
yeah.
I see that.
I did that for like 10 years, 20 years, probably. I'm like, I'm doing the work, it's just like, and for me, it was meditation and yoga and not to say like, hey, I am not cranking on any of those practices. I'm just saying there was things that I needed to address in a different way than I had been addressing them. And I just hadn't found it. I had been practicing all of these things, continually seeking for things, and they all did certain things for my life that were amazing, had amazing experiences. But deep down, I was still like this, like on the inside after all of that time. I can remember when I was doing like studying a bit of Sanskrit and doing intense mantra, like sitting for 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Doing like repetitions of certain mantras. And then I was like, not paying my taxes, like not dealing with my dog or like, I wasn't living in my body. I wasn't living life. And I remember at some point I got like booted out of that, not by any like one teacher, but it was like an overall consciousness is like, your work is not up here. It's here first. And so had I had that foundation, like obviously I don't do any kind of like take backsies. I know everything worked out for me the way it was supposed to. But if I could go back and do it again, I'm like, man, I'd have the SE, the somatic experiencing and like that shit. That's just like biological knowledge. Like it's foundational.
Yes.
And once you have that, man, everything else can become like a fun game. And like, you're still like going to be faced with your own bullshit. Obviously, the healing journey doesn't ever stop, but it's more about like the experience of it, than like desperately needing something. I talked about that a bit in my last podcast with Lisa Hillier. I was just like, man, it's so nice to just do things because I want to do things, not because I feel like I'm going to fucking fall to pieces if I don't. And that's the difference for me anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm hosting a 31-day deconditioning challenge. And today
Ooh,
what I
when does that
did,
start? Does that start it?
well, it started in October, but what we did is we kind of opened it up. So it's like a rolling enrollment, join
Nice.
anytime kind of
Perfect.
thing, because it's just so good. Like, why limit it?
Yeah.
But today, actually, I posted something for them. We're starting week 3 with people that started October 1st. And what I posted for them was about creator consciousness and creating from passion rather than from requirement. Like, I have to, I need to, I should,
Not
but
I
rather,
choose to. Yeah.
right, when you release that attachment, it's like, no, I choose to because I love this. Like, I'm on this podcast not because I feel like I need to be, like I should because this is my business. Like, I legitimately enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, this is fun.
Yeah.
And I think when we release a lot of the conditioning around should, could, would, what my mom wants me to do, what my dad wants me to do, how do I make them happy, then we realize what actually makes us happy. And a lot of times it is not what we thought it was. Like, having $1 million business, not my goal.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want the responsibility. And like, I'm admitting it. Like, I'm not, that's not what I'm going for. But if you had asked me that a year ago, I would have been like, hell yeah, I want $1 million business.
Totally.
And maybe eventually what I find that like
so important. Yeah.
It's all tied up into is responsibility. And how much responsibility can my nervous system take? What's my capacity? So I know my capacity.
Yeah.
And I'm not even trying to like, I don't need to jump. You know, in Hebrew, we have a saying like jumping above the belly button. Like, I don't need to go there. I can just be right here and be happy with what I'm doing now. And just enjoy it.
Yeah.
I have goals, sure, but also this is where I am, and it's great.
Wow. That just, through a somatic lens, you're speaking to tending to capacity.
Yeah.
You're not just like reaching for some like arbitrary goal because everyone else is reaching for it, or because you think you should, you know, because you need this in order to feel a certain way about yourself. You're just like, no, like, I know what I want in my life. I know the spaciousness I want in my day. I know, you know, I just know myself. And that's a very different way to come at life, right? Yeah. It's knowing that your desires unconsciously are not necessarily true until you know yourself.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And there's nuance to that. And I feel like that is the nuance through doing somatic and nervous system work and shadow work. It's like you begin to see all of this, like, oh, right. It becomes more specific. You know, people will like often say like, you know, write out your goals and like do this. And for me, for a long time, I'm like, I want money or whatever. It's very vague.
Yeah.
Like, I want this or I want that. And I was like, but I don't even know how to get beyond that, because it's just like kind of a mess in here.
Yeah. And I think the coaching industry, the money mindset industry, all of this shit really fucked this up for us. Like, I started doing money mindset work with Manifestation Babe.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Whatever. Zinkina. I went to her first retreat in Miami. I think it was like 2016, 2017. Yeah. And it really fucked up my money mindset. Like, it gave me a money mindset that was negative because they did all this work on something that didn't need to be worked on. Yeah. What I needed was how to create an actual business. What I needed was understanding funnels and like my offers.
That's right.
And I think in the beginning, Catherine Zinkina, in the beginning, she, and I recognized she was in her 20s. She probably didn't know what the fuck she was doing, but she really messed up my brain. I willingly took it. I'm not a victim.
Yeah, of course.
But you know, it conditions you. Like, if you do somebody else's work without knowing who you are, you become conditioned.
That is exactly it. That's exactly it. Like, knowing yourself so that you can have, again, this word discernment keeps coming up. Yeah. It's like, I can take what's for me and leave the shoulds and leave the rest, you know?
Right. Like I was under the impression that if I did her work, I could sit on the couch and manifest money.
That's right. Is it coming yet?
And right.
No.
And she was selling it, and it was working. People were buying it because people are lazy, and I was one of them.
Yeah.
But we quickly learned it does not work that way. And I think her work has changed a lot. So I'm not trying to talk shit, but I do think that I was conditioned by that. And like that created a lot of money mindset. Also the coaching, like what they're selling you. Like I just said this to a client today. The coaching industry is a huge egregore. Like they want you to constantly be searching for something outside of yourself.
Of course.
They want you to constantly need more. They want you to rely on them. They want you to keep buying their stuff, right? They're going to say whatever they need to say. Of course, it's business. But when we make it about ourselves, when we look at that and we're like, oh my God, she's making $1 million a year, which I'm going to say half the time is a lie. She's making $1 million a year. I want that. Why can't I do that? I'm not good enough because I don't have that.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're
like this. Yeah. Constant comparison.
It's constant comparison.
Yeah.
Constant. It's terrible. Like I tell my clients all the time, like, I don't want you to rely on me. Like, please don't. You don't like that.
Like, I don't want that responsibility. Yeah. Fuck that.
Yeah. I'm highly individual. Like I need space. This is why I'm not married. I need space. No, I love my clients, but that's part of the work that we do is to show them how to do the work for themselves, not to rely on me or a guru, on Ra or anyone to heal.
Yeah. And I think that especially when we're traumatized, we can get into this mindset of save me, like, do this for me because I don't know how to do it for myself. And that's a lot of times, that's true, and at the same time, it's false. And that's how we can find ourselves in these like precarious situations that we may not have. Giving our power away to something outside of ourselves. Like, that's not saying that, we can't learn from each other. Obviously, like we're sitting here and I'm like, fuck, Danna's amazing. She knows all this stuff and I want to learn from you and all of these things. That's not saying that. It's saying that like, you can say something and I can completely disagree with you and like not take that on as truth for myself, which I sometimes when you're in practice of, guru and student or teacher and student, it's like you bypass your own knowing. You're like, oh, well, they said that and they're here. So they must know more than me. And I think that maybe that's also why I love somatic work so much, is because you become your own like bullshit reader. Like your level of ability to be able to sense what's right for you. And that's, by the way, again, very different for each body. Something that feels really good for one body is going to feel like shit for the next body. So it's highly individual.
Right. Which we're not taught.
No. We're like, everybody just like go to school, do the thing, learn this way, be this way, talk this way, walk this way, wear this outfit. This shit's popular. Do that thing. We're in training since we come out the womb.
100%.
So it's like this journey of deconditioning, this journey of like coming back to our bodies, and forming this relationship with them is, it's the most important work.
It really is. It really is. Like none of the other shit matters. This is the foundational piece. And it's interesting because people don't like that as an answer.
Hell no. I didn't like that. I was like, what I got to do? Just tell me what I got to do.
Right. Give me the information.
Give me the information.
Tell me what to do. And even shadow work, it's like, well, what do I do now? Well, nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing. Now, when the situation presents itself again, we make a different choice. But I think the work is definitely the most important work that any of us could ever do is reconnect to our bodies in a non-cookie cutter way.
That's right. Yeah.
Like understanding how our body works and how our body is also conditioned by trauma. And this is the other thing I wanted to say when you were talking about how we want someone else to figure it out for us. what I've learned about the traumatized brain is that it loves certainty because it's so scared of the unknown. And that's why human design is so popular, because we're all traumatized and it provides certainty. Like when you look at the body graph and I show you, hey, Lisa, look how amazing you are. You're like, oh shit. Well, if it says it in the chart, it must be true.
That's right.
And I can accept it because there's that certainty by seeing it on the chart.
Yeah.
So if I can show you on the chart that you've been traumatized or that you are operating out of your sabotage patterns, you're more likely to accept it. And then we can move forward. Yeah. There's less of that denial, right? It's more of like, okay, I can see this. I can see how I do this. Okay, I can accept it. Once you can accept it and you have that awareness of it, you've already done half the work.
That's right. The awareness.
And then it's like a slip and slide.
Yeah. It's like you've got to be aware of something.
Yeah, for sure.
Period. Right. If you're not aware of something, it's just like you're going in circles, and that's true in trauma. That's true in like relationship injuries, and how we can sometimes find ourselves in the same pile of shit over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. And we can't see our own patterns sometimes.
That's right.
Like it's so important to have somebody else point it out. Like I don't have a lot of people that point out my patterns, but I do have like a therapist that I just started seeing, like a different one. And he called out something the other day where I was like, oh my God, that is so clear to me. I literally laughed out loud, like in between tears. And he's like, I love that you're not taking this personally. I was like, no, that's amazing. Like you just caught a huge pattern for me that I was never able to see in that light. So it's so important to be around different people and see different perspectives. And like the sun is shining on me right now.
I see. It's glorious, glorious sun.
Yeah. Which is, again, that deconditioning program I just told you about, like that is what that program's all about, just providing new perspectives and helping you see new perspectives and deciding, does this get to be true in my life?
Totally. And I love your ability to be able to guide people through processes. Like I know that you have a few other books, like workbooks that are available on Amazon. Yeah. Becoming Who You Are was one of them.
Yep.
And
that's my first one.
Yes.
That's old now.
Right. Old now is probably like 2020 or something. A few years
old.
Something
like that. 2018, maybe.
Yeah. And like, but I love that you're constantly taking people through these processes, whether it's through that or like you have another one, Escape Expectations, I believe it was called. And it's like, all of these different tools to use as self-discovery. It's like, here are some questions, here are some journal prompts, here are some things to consider. Now let's see what happens from there, and it's similar to the shadow report as well. It's not like, you can learn all the things and think all the things without embodying the things. Of course, you can read a report and like put it off to the side for, another couple of years until you pull it out again. You're like, holy shit, these things happened. Or I'm realizing these things now. And I think, timing plays a part in it too. Some people just aren't ready to look at certain things. And that has to do with capacity as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think, things happen at the right time. And even if it's not right now, it might be in a week or 2 weeks, or just, you really have to just trust that everything happens at the right time.
Yeah. And I think also what, all of this work has opened up for me, and especially through human design, being like a 4/6 profile, when I was traumatized, like I was hiding away from people, and human design's telling me that I'm supposed to be like connecting people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I see two people.
Right. One of them is a dog.
One of them is a dog and the other is my husband.
Right.
Or like, a close, like really tight circle of friends, which is great, and as, I like rolling like that anyway, but I also love these types of conversations, but all of that was squashed. Like this, doing what we're doing right now, this wasn't an option for me, like even like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
If you would have said like, Lisa, you're going to start a podcast, you're going to be interviewing people, I'd have been like, I'm just going to go and throw up right now. Cause like being witnessed in that way was not available. And I thought that that's just who I was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, hell no. Like, you love having conversations. You like people, Lisa, remember?
Right.
You know,
Right.
but
The
I
right people.
didn't. The right people. But even then, I didn't at the time. But also, you point to a very important thing, the right people. Like, as a projector, if I'm not feeling like cherished, and I mean, this is true for human beings, but like, I feel like it's especially hard for projectors,
Yeah.
you know, because we've been waiting. We just like wait for, you know, people to someone outside of ourselves. So that's another aspect. It's like, how can I recognize myself and my gifts first, which I just like didn't get for the longest of times. Like, oh, I have to see myself first as being important and worthwhile and all of these things, right? Helpful, you know? And then like things just start coming in. So it's not necessarily just about like sitting around and waiting, as we know. It's like actively doing the things that I love and talking to people, and that just having like this open availability for the universe or whatever, God, my system, my nervous system, to bring in what's right for me, and getting like very accurate on like what types of friendships, what types of partnerships I want in my life. It's huge.
Yeah. And so hard.
So hard.
Probably the hardest.
Probably the hardest, I would say. You know, like, you know, when your group is just like not your crew.
Yeah. Yeah. But then like, how do you drop them? Right. Like those are
the
that's
whole
hard.
other thing.
Yeah. But I mean, it's hard to be, I know we're going a different route now, but like, it's hard to be on this journey and be the only one out of your friends, or, you know, to feel like you no longer connect with these people that have been in your life for years and years and years and years, whether that's family or friends.
Yeah.
And again, we have that mind, that ego that's like, well, you just think you're too good for everybody else.
No.
You're just, you know, you're this and you're that, and you need to stay with these people. They need you.
Yeah.
You need to help them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot. There's it's like every street I turn on to, not, you know, figuratively, there's a different obstacle. You know, it's like the work. Also, I'm a 1-3. So like my life is all about the obstacles.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like the deeper you go, the more you will find.
Ain't that the truth?
You just learn to see it in a different perspective. Like my 3 is naturally pessimistic, but I learned to see it as like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like, let's see what happens at the end of this one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, let's see what happens at the end of this show. If you go into it with like that playful, compassionate curiosity, I think you get a very different result.
Yeah.
At least internally, somatically.
Yeah, absolutely. Which oftentimes leads to a different result externally.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my experience anyway. And it doesn't always happen immediately. You know, you can be having literally the same prayer for like a long time, but it's not matching with, again, we speak to this word capacity. You know, like maybe you have a desire, but your body's like, fuck, man, like, no, like, I can't keep up with that right now. I don't want that right now.
Yes.
But we learn to bypass for very good reasons. You know, we got them kids, we got dogs, we have jobs to go to. We have all of these things that require us to bypass our own internal knowing of like what we can actually do. And over time that adds up. And over time that leads to burnout and like, oh my God, midlife crisis. It's like, well, if we've all spent the first 35 years of our life doing shit we don't like, 8 hours a day, you know, and then our body's like screaming at us. Of course, one day it's just going to be like, no, nope, no.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. And you're right. Like you bring up a really great point. Like even when it comes to like manifesting or achieving my goals or creating things, like if your body is saying no, like it's not gonna happen. So stop trying to push through it by like affirming a gajillion times And, like I'm remembering all these things that like all the manifestation teachers and guru used to say. And I'm like, that was so fucking toxic. That was so toxic. And I don't think any of them were, it was all good intentioned. And I think it took us time to catch up to the knowledge.
That's right.
And to like fully decode it and understand it. But it's, you really have to listen to your body. It'll tell you why you can't have this thing. If when you think about having $1 million business, your body's like, no. And like, it's probably not going to work out right now.
Totally. Yeah. And it's like you said before, it's kind of minute to minute. It's like right now, no. Yeah. Right now it's a hell no. Maybe next month, maybe tomorrow it will be, let's talk about it some more.
Right.
Or whatever that looks like. Yeah. And so I love what this conversation is opening up for folks. It's like what it comes down to is that no matter what you're saying, no matter what I'm saying, it's like we have to find our own way through this maze, and we can allow the help of others. We can do it collaboratively, or we can try and lone wolf it. So here's the other point I'm going to make. And I know that you've experienced this too, this idea of like taking on the role of strong one. And so I know this to be so true for my own self because I had to manage so much when I was little, and manage other people's emotions. I'm trying to manage my own, even though I didn't have a pure understanding of them, and just really feeling like I had to be everything to everyone, which led to, obviously like people pleasing and all of these other things, lone wolf, and I used to hate it when people would pedestal me, but like I was creating that.
Yeah.
By always being like, no, I'm fine. Like I got this, when really internally I was like, I don't have anything, and then I was pissed about it, but it was this, like my actions weren't, how do I want to say this? It's not even that my actions weren't aligning with my words. It's like what I was saying was not true.
Yeah.
And like what I was saying was not true. And I came to really hate that word. Like, oh, you're so strong. People would say it to me. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't even know. Like, you don't even know. So like, yeah, that's true in one level. And on the other level, it's like, I need to figure out a way how to be softer with myself and my expectations, and also vulnerable enough to let people in. And that only happens through safety. To be playful, to be curious requires a certain amount of safety in the body. And if you've lived your life like this, that's really scary. So, yeah. So becoming this, like having it all together, and what's that been like for you to kind of just like, and have you kind of let that go, that idea of like, you got your shit together, and what's that felt like for you just to like, kind of relax into that.
Yeah. I think that whole like be strong thing works really well in times of crisis.
Yeah.
Like when we are in danger of a bear or a monster or in a time of war, being strong is literally what you need to do to survive. Because if you were to collapse on the floor, you would be eaten, you would be murdered, you would die. So I think being strong is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's that we carry it with us, right? Like we are strong in that moment, but then we don't let ourselves collapse after. We don't let ourselves release after. We keep holding on to this. I need to be strong, because we see how people respond to us when we are strong. Oh, well, this feels good. Great job, Lisa. Like, kudos, right? You stayed strong. You helped our family. Oh, well, now I need to be strong for everyone, right? And I think it's so easy to take that role. I don't remember exactly your body graph right now, but I know you have a defined emotional center. For me, it was in my undefined emotional center where I couldn't handle amplifying other people's emotions. So I would manage them with my behaviors. And in my managing their emotions with my behaviors, I became the strong one.
Yeah.
But really, it was a very selfish thing to manipulate them into everything's fine, fixing their emotions just so I wouldn't have to feel it.
Right.
Again,
Oh,
this wasn't
shit.
conscious.
Yeah.
This is all survival. It's literally what we learn to do to survive. And when I learned this, I was like, oh my God, I see myself doing this everywhere, everywhere, in like all of my relationships. And it was a moment by moment shift that I had to make, or even afterwards, right? Like, oh, I just manipulated them into not having a feeling. So I had to be like, okay, wait a minute. Here is what I did here. And I want to backtrack on that. And that was how I learned to stop doing it and to stop being the strong one.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the most important things, I'm highly individual in terms of circuitry. So like my energy pulses on and off, is honoring my cycles. Like when I'm off and I'm down and I'm binging Netflix for the next 3 days, like it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried that I won't come out of it. Like it just honoring myself where I'm at. Like I don't go to the gym every day because sometimes I wake up and it's not a matter of I'm being inconsistent and I'm being lazy and my mind is telling me no, but my body's whatever, you just have to go, right? I can't, no, I don't work that way. It spikes my cortisol and I stay in fight or flight for a few days after if I go to the gym when my body says no.
That's right.
And it's honoring your cycles when everybody else is telling you not to. When everything and everybody else is telling you you're bad, you're inconsistent, you're wrong, don't eat that, eat this, don't do that, do this.
That's right.
And they're keeping you in that fight or flight, in that high cortisol of that strong one, right? Like within that crisis.
Yeah.
Well, I just have to go. I just have to do it. Like I can't let my mind win. It's not about the mind. Sometimes it's just about the body. But yeah, I think one of the ways that I got out of that strong one or the fixer, and I'm not completely out of the fixer, I still see it show up in my relationships where I find myself trying to manage people's emotions. Men with defined solar plexuses, I'm sorry, but you and I just aren't going to work right now. Like I get very caught up in that roller coaster. And it becomes very toxic for me where I am right now. And with the men I have met with defined solar plexus recently, forever, probably not, but it's something that I've had to notice because I can see myself amplifying it and trying to manipulate it. And I'm like, I don't have the capacity for this.
Yeah.
So it's a lot about awareness. It's a lot about being in safe places. Like you said, after my divorce, I had a boyfriend who, felt super safe at the time. Hindsight's 2020, but, and he really helped me open up and I knew he wasn't going to throw it back in my face. And that was he was emotionally available, right? He had already done the work.
That's right.
So he was able to open up to me, which allowed me to feel safe to open up to him. And it was that trial and error and noticing my patterns and honoring my cycles and recognizing and accepting that I am different.
That's right. Damn it.
I am so fucking different. And like, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work, that way of doing life. Like I had a consultation with a trainer and he's like, we'll meet once or twice a week at this time. I was like, I can't commit to that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Like, I don't know what my body's going to say that day.
Yeah.
So I need to have a different plan.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff doesn't work. And that's okay. And I think accepting that for anyone, everyone is so important. So important.
So important. And it looks different for everyone. Like for me, my thing is naps. I take so many naps. And even before I knew about human design, I was an interior designer and like working like 9 to 5 or like 7 to 4 or whatever. And on lunch breaks, every lunch hour, I would go home and sleep for an hour.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just normal. Like I thought that that's what people did. I'm like, oh, y'all don't just like have a nap at lunch. People are like, no, we don't, Lisa. No, we don't. And so I just remember thinking like back then, I didn't even think anything of it. I'm like, this is just what I need.
Yeah.
But then when I started to like tell people about me needing to like nap, they're like, damn, that's like, what's wrong with you? Like, are you sure you're not
Yeah.
sick or ill or
Don't
something?
tell
I'm like,
people
yeah, I'm like,
anything.
no, like, I'm pretty sure I'm not like sick right now. Like, I just think that this is what I need. So I've reclaimed that,
Yeah.
I'm like, girl, I'm like in between appointments and sessions and all of that. The first thing I'm doing is I'm getting outside and like, unless it's snowy and like horrible weather,
Yeah.
Canadian winters, even then, sometimes I'll go and put my feet in the snow. I do that. And then I go and I have a nap and it's like
Yeah.
exactly right for me.
Yeah. I love
Whereas it's
that.
not exactly right for like, not necessarily a generator that like,
Right.
can like go and go and go and is meant to just like, get rid of their energy throughout the day and then go to sleep. If I go to sleep exhausted, that shit's not good for me. I wake up the next day and like the whole next day, I don't feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a very real you thing. Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you start telling people, they don't understand. And then they
Yeah.
make you think there's something wrong with you.
That's right.
So like, don't tell people.
Right. I
Like,
just like,
or
fuck.
tell, the correct people.
Well, and
Um,
now I just don't care. I'm like, I'm a
yeah.
napper and I know
Yeah.
that's right for me. So
Yeah.
like, it's all
Right.
good.
Yeah.
you,
You've built
you,
your confidence.
that's right. I'm like, you can do your no nap thing and I'm be over here napping,
Yeah. I
but
love
just
that.
those little things like that's self-acceptance too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I mean, and I guess this probably, and maybe you can speak to this more, but I find being in relationship, and I think it probably has a lot to do with my split. It's like I'm learning so much. Like I can be alone and I can be single and that's all fine. But like some of my deepest work that I've ever done has been in partnership.
Yeah. That's
And
definitely the
so,
split.
yeah, you would say that that's a split. So that's true for me. So if I'm going to go and say to someone that like doesn't have that, like, oh, you just like, you're not doing the things you need to do because you haven't found a partner. It's like, that's such bullshit,
Right.
you
No,
know?
yeah, it's so different. Like I've had people that are splits that are married to single definition and they're like, I need attention. I need you to tell me that you love me. I need to be in this. I need this. I need this. I love you. And the single definition is like, back up. Like, this is too much. I told you I loved you 12 years ago and I meant it. Like, why do I have to say it
12
again?
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just such a different dynamic. And when you start to understand that, like, this is mechanics, this
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with you. It doesn't mean anything about you. Yes, there's potential trauma and everything, but also this is mechanics. Like, I was dating someone with a large split. And as a split definition, we crave someone to bridge us. We
Mm,
crave collaboration. We
yeah.
crave partnership. We just, as it's mechanics. Our
Yeah.
genes are looking for it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's always correct. It doesn't mean we should always be in a partnership. It definitely does not mean we should always be bridged
Yeah.
because that's not correct either. We don't want to be locked in that bridge.
Right.
That just means we have a fixed way of seeing the world. But, I was in a relationship with someone who had a large split and I could not understand why he mistrusted people, why he
Mm,
just had this huge distrust for everyone. And then I realized he had a large split and I was like, oh, this is mechanical. Like, this makes sense, right? Like, large splits don't like being compromised. Like, they don't like when you bridge their split because then you're compromising them with an entire channel.
that's right.
And that feels overpowering, especially if someone in their early life compromised them and also did them dirty. Right now,
Mm,
we're getting into trauma, and someone with a large split, now I know where to look. Right
yeah.
now, I know how to start that conversation.
Yeah.
But it is very nuanced, and we can learn so much about ourselves in relationships, especially as a projector and as a split definition.
Yeah.
I also find co-regulating
Yeah.
can be so powerful for split definition
Yeah.
because we just find so much value and meaning in our relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And I mean, speak of nuance, there's triple splits and what's the other one?
Quad.
Quad. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. That are all just a little bit different. Yeah.
they're all just a little bit different in how they do partnership and how they do life and what's right for them. So
yeah, right. Like a quad, you know, if a quad came to me and said, I'm thinking about getting married, I'd be like, consider an open marriage. You know, like
right.
quads are really great with polyamory. Like they have a lot of different groups of people that maybe do not connect. They
Mm.
love getting to know, they are someone different with every single group. And
Mm.
that's healthy for them.
Yeah.
Whereas in society, some people might be like, oh, you're two-faced.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's their mechanics. Like that is healthy for them.
And what about a triple? I don't know much about
So,
triples. I don't think.
yeah, I mean, triple
Yeah.
splits are similar to single definition, where they don't necessarily need someone to bridge them. They, like, if I had a triple split come to me, instead of looking at what would bridge all of the three islands together, I would
Mm.
look at their undefined centers, specifically if there was one undefined center in between, or one that
Mm.
kind of like catches your eye, you know, because it's between two of the islands. I would look there. Where's your conditioning here? What did you
Mm.
learn about this?
Yeah.
This is like a hot spot. Who are you attracting with this, right? Like our openness is attracting what it is not, right? The opposite, the receptors. And so what are you attracting because of this?
Yeah. God.
But you know, I say this all the time, like we don't live in a vacuum. I
Mm.
look at the entire chart, which is
Yeah.
why learning how to synthesize the chart is so important. A lot of people read human design by just like pulling out little pieces, but it
Right.
is about synthesizing. So in one of my programs, the human design shadow training, like I teach you all the different shadow elements, but then the most important thing of the whole thing is synthesizing it.
Yeah.
Like make it cohesive and make it like a whole, right?
Yeah.
Not just pulling out one thing, because you can't just look at one thing.
Right. Because if you're just pulling out this one thing, there could be like these other like 6 or 7 things that all change kind of depending
Yeah,
on that thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like one thing, a lot of people, I haven't met, I don't think any human design leaders that talk about this openly on social media is format
Tell us.
energy.
Oh, yes. Format. Tell us. Tell us what you
Format
know.
energy. Format energy fixes your chart. And when I say fix, I do not mean it makes it better. I mean it cements it. It is your overall energy. It is your essence. Like format energy are those gates and channels that connect the sacral and the root. And they are the most depressive channels in the body graph. They are about depression. They are about increasing our consciousness and
Yeah.
evolving, but also in the not self, they can create a lot of depression. And that energy, whether in the true self or the not self, does have the power to cement your overall energy. So for me, I have the 9.
Me
just the 9.
too.
Oh, great.
I have the 9, but it's not a full channel. It's split. Yeah.
Yep. I have
Yeah.
the gate 9 in my defined sacral. You do not have a
I
defined
do not
sacral.
have defined. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's inconsistent, which means you'll experience it inconsistently. But like my gate 9 fixes my entire chart in terms of like the way my mind works is through logic. Like I'm a logical person.
Yeah.
Like I love somatic work and I trust my body, but my work is logical. My work is practical.
Yeah.
And that's I can't understand you if there's no logic to it.
Right.
Like I need to be able to make some sort of sense to it. I need to find the patterns. Patterns are my entire life, right? Being a line 3, but also doing this subconscious work, I find the patterns. So that energy really cements my entire chart in that flavor. Like the way that I kind of explained it was like, if, you know, I showed like a Canva thing to my students, like, you know, you have one color and then on top of it, you overlay a gradient. It's like that gradient is the theme is what you can see.
Right.
If that it's hard for me to explain it. I see it in my head and I'm trying to put it into words.
No, that totally makes sense. And that speaks to me too, with like having the 9, even though it's inconsistent. It's like when I teach, it's like there's got to be elements of educating.
Yeah.
And not just the somatic. So yeah, same. When I'm taking a client on a journey, there has to be both worlds. It's like, you need to understand this, like the brain needs to process thing, or at least mine does. So that's the way I like to teach, to like bring it up to the higher centers of the brain, while also, holy shit, like what you feeling in there, like all of these things together. And I didn't until this moment kind of put those pieces together. So thank you. That 9, I think the 9 is also my Mercury.
Oh, interesting.
So explaining things in like kind of like a 1 foot in front of the other kind of way, which makes sense because when I think big picture, I am a big picture thinker. Projector. But when I break things down, my whole body's like, oh, thank you for just like not focusing on doing the world right now. Yes. Thank you for just like breaking it down for me.
Like you can hold the vision as a projector. Like we love for you vision for us, for us generators, but you can also hone in on those details with that gate 9 and make it logical. See the patterns for a better future. That's the understanding collective circuit.
Beautiful. So format. Oh my God. If any of y'all listening have format energy, well, check out Danna anyways, but specifically too, that's a big one.
Post on that. I do have a post on that, but I'll create another one to go into more detail about, like, if you have the 9, you don't have the 52, you have the 42, no 53 kind of thing, because that does hold some weight.
Beautiful. And so would you say, because I know obviously we're looking at the chart as a whole, but I always want to ask, like, if there's one kind of shadow aspect that if someone had to choose which thing to kind of like start with, what is there one thing in particular that kind of is a domino in the chart?
Yeah. So I do find that it's different for everyone, but generally speaking, I would look at your definition. So single definition, triple split, they would want to look at their undefined centers first. Split, simple split, large split, wide split, and quad split want to look at their bridges, those gates that would bridge their definition. Those are going to be your most dominant places of conditioning. And then I'd also say to look at your unconscious unconscious Mars. This is what Gene Keys calls the core wound. This is what we look at as generational trauma. The wounds that you might be holding on to, that you might be carrying with you, that are in fact not yours, but the chains that you were meant to crack, to break. And then below that is your shadow genius. It's the work you're meant to be doing. I don't know, like once you get me started, I'm like, but also Pluto.
And keep going, girl. We got some time.
Also, I love Pluto. Like my students know I'm always raving about Pluto. I'm not even sure if it's still technically a planet, which I feel like is a conspiracy theory on its own, but I love Pluto. I think it tells me more about a person than almost anything else in the chart.
How so?
I just think it shows us our transformation, the transformation we're capable of, which becomes your life. It becomes who you are. It also shows us our greatest fears, which also can become who you are.
Oh, now I just want to like pull out my chart and be like, where's my Pluto at?
Everybody go and look at your Pluto.
Go look at your Pluto.
And, again, there's nuances. These are things that I teach in the human design shadow training. If Pluto's in an undefined centers, then your fears are going to be more prevalent. Those are going to be big themes in your life.
So many nuggets here. I'm sure that we're going to probably have to do like another one of these at some point, because there's so much to cover. Like I have, many more questions, as I'm sure our viewers do as well. So I want to know, where can people go and hang out with you? Where can people find you? Do you have any upcoming events, workshops, or anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, so I am pretty active on Instagram, and I think you have the link that you'll post.
I'll put it all in the show notes.
Okay, cool. So pretty active on Instagram, stories, reels. If there's anything you want to learn, feel free to drop me a DM, slide into my DMs, and I'll create something around it. Right now, I have a round of the human design shadow training going. This is round 4. We are hoping to open another one up in January. So that's coming up. The 31-day deconditioning program is cool. I've never done anything like this before. I knew I wanted to do something different. So basically, it's a 30-page guide that you get week by week. So it's a Google Doc, unless you opt to receive the workbook via PDF, okay. Then it comes in a PDF. But each week you get a part of the guide, and it's set up to help you decondition through the lens of manifesting. So I call this manifestation 2.0. Like, you know, everything we just talked about manifestation and my problems with it, I fixed it. I made it logical.
Yeah, you did.
So this is to give you a new perspective on yourself. There's different challenges within the week. We have a private Instagram profile where we're sharing. There's probably like 45 people in it right now, which is awesome. And it's ongoing. So instead of it just being the month of October, we open enrollment up. So it's just rolling. Whenever you get in there, everything is there. Whatever you need is there. And then every week you get different parts of the guide, and it takes you through basically my deconditioning / manifesting process. So that one is really fun. I love the way that's set up. People seem to be enjoying it. And yeah, other than that, you know, I have a free shadow chart on my website, humandesignshadow.com. And then you can download a $97 shadow report that is customized to you. We're constantly working on improving that, adding more things, making it better. So all of that is coming. You'll get a free upgrade if you purchase the report whenever it's ready.
Amazing. So as I shared, I will put all of that in the show notes. And I just want to say, Danna, like, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your journey and your mastery and your wisdom and knowledge, all things human design and trauma. You're such a gift. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye for now. As always, thank you so much for listening. Life is busy, so it means even more that you are here. Listen, we've got so many great episodes coming up, so please make sure that you follow along on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you are listening. And if you appreciate these episodes, please do us a favor and leave a review and share the show with anyone you think this episode would benefit. See you again next week. Bye for now.